I don't really care for mission-based games, mainly because I like to explore, and I feel like the mission start screen can take you out of the immersion. Now, I don't really mean any type of game like Monster Hunter, because quests and missions are the heart of those games. Now, I know Monster Hunter games are more than just quests. It's grinding, a whole lot of grinding, and aiding in monster population control. I sadly aided with the materials market in Monster Hunter Worlds, but I put up my bow a long time ago. Main reason I stopped playing was a previous friend kind of ruined the game for me, and also I was done with what I wanted to do. The game has a ton of grinding, which is necessary if you want a certain item set and weapons. So that means you have to grind a certain monster to get everything you need. But the main reason I stopped playing was because I was tired of having to read a monster's body language in order to beat them. Listen, I don't care enough to understand people's emotions, so why should I care to do it for a monster? Okay, that sounded mean. I would probably care more about a monster than most people. I kind of wish there was a health bar when it came to the monsters, but I know it would take away from the immersion. In what world does a health bar show up above a monster when they're close enough to it? It's still weird because I'm saying its health bar shows up when you're close to it. Okay, let's workshop this. It makes sense. It just feels weird because I feel like it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. So like it makes sense. I'm gonna do this. Like this is my problem with like a lot of like lines is the fact that like you have to kind of make it so it makes sense to people. But a lot of times like my lines are like it makes sense to me. Because all I'm talking about is like a health bar spawning on somebody. It's the same thing like in the Sekais, right? When the or any truthfully manga when the person has the status bar, right? So they see their skills, they see their class, they see what they're like. Like a lot of different mangas have that kind of weird thing where they see it's like an indicator, but it's not. The fuck do you call it? It's I want to say status bar, but it's more of like it's not even. I can't even say it's like a social index, but it is their status, right? Because you see a lot of them is like see their age, what they like, their tendencies and stuff. But again, it's hard to really gauge that. Like it's what I was trying to say with the Monster Hunter, is that it would be great if you could see it, but because of the fact that this is supposed to be like a game where you are the hunter and you're not really like this game character, you're really immersing yourself as a hunter, so you wouldn't have a health bar above the hunted kind of name, whatever, like the monster's thing, because they wouldn't see that, right? Like the character would not see that. They would just have to do it kind of on vibes because again they're a hunter, so they should know when a monster is close to death. If that happened in real life, I would pinch myself, and if it was still there, then I would just have to fight them because they are an enemy I have to overcome. Once I beat them, I will see the level up screen and will start reaching my full potential. The Isekai legacy that we all deserve. Lame. Oh my gosh. Also, even if I wanted to play Monster Hunter Wilds, I wouldn't be able to. Not because of the system requirements, but because I don't want to pay $70 for a game. Maybe when the game goes on a massive sale and I have nothing else to play, then you may get a video about that game. So, when I was talking about mission based games, I meant more of Devil May Cry, a game series I like because they didn't really take themselves that seriously. A lot of people fell in love with the characters and also the comedy that the game provides. Also, all the missions mesh together well enough, and don't really feel like everything is its own thing. What I mean by that is that the missions don't feel like it's its own thing, but a continuation for the last mission. Now, I feel like I am misremembering everything since I haven't really touched the DMC series in a long time. The thing I like the most about mission based games is the fact that you have to start a mission to start the next part of the story. Now, as bad as that sounds, I meant that more because you can take a break and when you're ready, you can start up that next mission. The bad thing about this is that some games don't allow you to stop or save unless you finish the mission, so no stopping until you're done. You can probably guess that games that revolve around the mission based system aren't my preferred type of games. I played a good amount of mission based games, and a lot of them have failed at the points that they should have succeeded in. So when games are done well, then they either succeed at one or both things. Those things being combat and story, which I wish I could say excels at other things, but sadly I haven't seen it. The MC later on excels at both aspects, and funnily enough, I couldn't recommend the earlier games because of jank. A game I reviewed, Demesia, was a mission based game, and it failed on both parts to me. It got close to being good with combat, but failed because of the comic mechanics. So, to give you a quick refresher, the game only really allowed you to main one weapon, but you had this interesting concept that allows you to take weapons from enemies for a limited amount of attacks. The reason I didn't like this aspect was because of the fact that this was a Souls like, that didn't really succeed at being a Souls-like. I would have liked that these soul weapons, not the name, but what I'm calling it since I forgot the name, would have liked the weapons to be more permanent. You kind of got to make different weapons more permanent, but you would only get a limited amount of uses of it. That means that you weren't really able to use it with your build, even though this was a key part to the game. The story followed the Dark Souls path, where everything that you needed to know, story-wise, was somewhere hidden in the world. Then you had the boss fights, which, for the most part, you had to decide if you liked it or not. But for some I liked, and others I didn't. Again, you may have liked the game, and if you did, that's okay. So, now we are a few minutes in, we can finally talk about what this video is all about. So, as you can tell, it's about a game that is mission-based. I will say that it didn't really have the same concept like Amnesia, and you were able to use all the weapons you got, and every weapon had their own combos. The game we're reviewing today is called Soulstice, and if you have played this game, then you can tell how this review is going to go. So the game starts you off fighting enemies while using all your weapons and being at full power. This is so you get a grasp at what to expect throughout the game, and also what kind of combat the game includes. So, you're playing as siblings that have to fight monsters in order to protect those that are still around. Well, truthfully, you aren't really going to see anyone around that isn't in your profession because the area you are in is already evacuated. But like usual, I will not spoil the story because why do that when I expect people not to have played the game? So let's talk about the story, because that is usually something I care about the most. The story was more of a retelling of past events than a story about the now and how important we are in the world. That probably doesn't make sense at all, but give me a minute to explain it all. So your character has a dead sister tethered to her. In order to understand how this all came to be, you have to look at the past. That means you'll have to deal with a ton of flashbacks in the game, which gives way to a very interesting gameplay feature. I'll talk about gameplay in a bit, but we'll talk about a gameplay action that is necessary for these flashbacks. So in these flashbacks, you have to use your sister's power in order to reveal the past to find out the truth about why you are in this situation. But to explain the story of this game is that you have to find out who you are and what everyone else around you went through. Now, gameplay was interesting because remember when I talked about how your sister said it to you? Well, that's an interesting game mechanic. So your sister can put up two different types of fields, which are used for two different things. Well, as similar actions, but for different enemies. The easiest way to explain the fields is to use a blue field for blue enemies and a red for red enemies. That means that without the fields active, you aren't able to kill the enemies. There are also red enemies that once you take them down, you have to switch to the blue field to kill the blue enemies that come out of them. If you don't kill them fast enough, then you have to take down the red enemy again and reenact this dance all over. Now it'd be too easy if the fields didn't have a time limit. So by popular demand, they have one. And also, we'll give you ads while you try to focus on these specialty enemies. Also, you get about 7 weapons to play around with in this game, but it is assigned to your key bindings. Like most games, these weapons are unlocked at certain points in the story. That means you won't be able to get fully adjusted to all the weapons. I'm guessing they did it this way so that you can easily switch through different weapons, but wasn't something I cared for. Also, in order to level up, you have to earn points, or, I guess, in-game currency that is collectible through the game and from the mini game that is combat. So every time you engage in combat, you are locked into a zone, and once you are finished, you are graded with how well you did, and also how fast you finished the battle. I was talking about Devil May Cry for a reason, and that's because the series has the same battle mechanic. I don't really like getting graded on how fast I went through a level because I feel like it is rewarding missing out on everything. Also, I'm a loot goblin, so I'm not leaving stuff behind just to get a good grade in the game. You're not going to stop me at all unless you don't put loot in games. But then, if you did it that way, you miss out on players wanting to explore your world. The level up system also wasn't really the best for the main character, because all your character got was combos and effectiveness against certain enemy types. I was too lazy to learn combos with the weapons because of the fact that there were a bunch of weapons to try out. Also, the game was short, and because I knew that, I didn't care enough to learn about all these different combos that I had to unlock with my in-game currency. For his sister, you got a better leveling system. Well, you got a skill tree. It changed the skills she used and also affected you later down the line. The bad thing is that you don't really have access to all your sister's skills, because why would life be easy? Or level up your sister, to get access to her other skills, you have to buy an expensive upgrade item, which sucks, because the currency that is needed for upgrades is rarer than the currency needed to upgrade your character. I wasn't even close to finishing leveling up her skill tree because of how expensive it got, but I was able to level up everything I could. So the skills themselves were relatively cheap, but the level up item was the expensive part. so her skills could cost up to 300 points. But her upgrade item could cost about 20k. Boss fights weren't that bad, but when it came to normal fights, it got boring and tedious. Because of how frequent the fights got, because of that, the story took a hit. It was predictable, and what could have been an alright story was spoiled because of their main character deciding to pick the dumbest actions. A common phrase I said while playing is that the little sister has better common sense than her older sister. What is with me, finding games where I like the supporting characters more than the main characters that is supposed to make me care about the game. Overall, I don't really think I could recommend this game because there wasn't anything that would draw me back to the game. I mean, maybe I would go back to finishing leveling everything and see what happens if I unleash my wild side, instead of going neutral, but that won't happen. And it's just a skill tree, and you can forgo leveling up certain skills, which will change your alignment. It wouldn't level up everything, and you get the neutral alignment, but whatever you choose will change the look and feel of your skills. I have no idea what the other skills did, since that wasn't my focus, and I felt that going neutral was for the best. Then again, if I didn't go neutral, then I would have more currency to try to level sister, but not going to fret about that right now. You also get an old like move later down the line that I decided not to use because it didn't make sense story wise to use it, especially with the kind of character that I was trying to make. Now, it didn't really feel like my refusal of using the powers really did anything to help me later on down the line, sadly. And funny enough, the only times I used the ult was in the challenge modes. Also, the ending of the game didn't really end in a good or bad way, but something of a neutral type of feeling. Maybe that means my decision to love everything affected the ending, but I honestly don't really believe that. The weird thing about the ending was that even if it was predictable, it was still interesting. The funniest thing was that one of the main supporting characters was surprised with the ending actions, even though it was kind of hinted that all of this would happen. Then again, to give him some slack, I don't believe that he was there when we got that information. Also, with the ending we got, it was kind of the best thing that could have happened to our character, which is kind of bad that I say that. To get my final opinion, I didn't really like the game for what it was, and felt that it was unpolished. I also got the vibe that this game may have came out 10 years ago because of how everything was. The game only came out in 2022. When I found out, I was so confused on how this was a newer game. It just felt like an older game, and I was going to give it some slack because it was older, but it is only 3 years old, so yeah, I can't be nice to it. Again, if you like these mission-based games, then maybe you'll have a different opinion on it, but for now, I have to say it isn't my cup of tea. So I haven't beat any games that I haven't touched before, which is why game video reviews are kind of slow right now. I do believe I'm close to beating a game, so when that happens, that is what the next video will be about. I had to remember everything about this game, even though it has been a minute since I beat it. I do like the topic I kind of made in the last video, and sadly, I have to say, I didn't do any art. I kind of became busy as the day went on, and also became very tired. I promise this week I'll try my best to practice some art. I'm also planning to get some roadie right after this, so I guess my stomach will be bloated for a few days after this. Listen, it is for a yummy cause. I feel like that is worth it. I'll also be in better shape if I was able to pick up more work, but sadly that hasn't happened. I also have a plan for practicing art, which will require me to pick up one of the summer stocks I applied for. If I get it, then I will have some downtime that won't be filled with editing or writing a script, so I'll be able to fill it with practicing art that I need for backstory videos. I haven't even started writing a story for that character yet, because like I said, doing these videos takes a ton of time out of my day, and I would probably need a week or two off to start brainstorming a story. Which, funny enough, I could easily take off that much time and still be fine. I'm also debating if I make a pizza tomorrow, which I probably will, but I will probably just make it and store it because I doubt I'll be hungry enough to eat anything. I have some snacks I can munch on while I work on art tomorrow, so I should be fine, but that is if I find my art tablet and pen to start drawing. I really hope that isn't the place I remember leaving it at, but I'll tell you all next week if I actually drew for a bit. Also decided that if I were to get a summer stock, I would upgrade my mic, desk, and also my GPU. I also feel like I would need to upgrade my mixer, but we will see if I do all that. Hope you enjoyed my recap after review, but my name is Only Incubus and that is my time. I will see you all next week. Hope you have a great day. Later days. I love you all. Bye. Mwah. Saying kisses consensually. Love you all. Mwah. Bye. Love you all. Bye. Bye. Love you. Peace.